The Snitch. Most locks just try to stop you. This one seizes up, sulks, and tells its owner you were here. The Chubb Detector Lock. Jeremiah Chubb, 1818. It exists because of a burglary, a Portsmouth dockyard warehouse, 1817, opened with a copied key. The government offered a reward for a lock nobody could pick, one that would show if someone tried. Inside, it's a lever lock. The right key lifts each lever exactly right, and a stump on the bolt slides through the gaps. Chubb added one extra lever, the detector. Lift any lever too far, which is exactly what a pick does, and the detector grabs it and jams the whole lock solid. And it stays jammed. So the owner comes back, tries his own key, and it won't turn. Now he knows. A picker named Hobbs finally opened one at the 1851 Great Exhibition in about 25 minutes, but by then the point was made. The idea outlived the lock. A lock that reports an attack instead of just resisting it. That idea is everywhere now. Tamper seals, alarm contacts, the little strip on your pill bottle. The government paid 100 guineas for a snitch. Best money they ever spent. The 67-year bet. Joseph Brahma built a lock, put it in his shop window, and dared the world to pick it. Nobody managed it for 67 years. The Brahma lock, patented 1784. The card in the window offered 200 guineas to anyone who could open it. No levers. A ring of thin sliders arranged in a circle around a central axis. A little tubular key pushes each slider down to its own exact depth, and only when every one is right does the plate turn. Then, in 1817, they made it meaner, false notches cut into every slider. So a picker feeling for the real stopping point hits fake after fake first. It held for 67 years from the patent. Then C. Hobbs, the same man, the same 1851 exhibition opened it. It took him over 50 hours, spread across 16 days, with a tool he built for the job. And he had to do it twice because the judges thought the first time was a fluke. Brahma locks are still made. What Hobbs actually broke was the idea that any lock is unpickable, a 67-year winning streak, ended by a man who needed 2 weeks in a rematch to prove it wasn't luck. The Cannonball. Frontier banks had a dynamite problem. Their answer was to make the safe a giant steel ball. The Cannonball safe. The valuables sit inside a thick steel sphere with a round plug for a door. Marvin patented an early round safe in 1863. Mosler and York built the famous ones. The shape is the whole trick. A normal safe is a box, and a box has corners, seams, and flat panels. Somewhere for a crowbar to bite or a charge to sit. A sphere has none of that. No edge to pry, no flat to punch, no seam for a crowbar to catch, and nothing for a charge to sit against. The later ones went further, using manganese steel, a metal that gets harder right where you drill or hit it. What killed it was concrete. Modern vaults, reinforced concrete and composite, do the same job cheaper and lighter, without weighing 1.5 tons and eating half the room. The Cannonball didn't lose a fight. It got outbuilt. The most advanced anti-explosive technology of its age was basically make it round, so the crowbar slips off. The keyless. A bank lock with no key at all, because a key is just a thing a robber can take off you. James Sargent's changeable combination bank lock, 1857. The first one that actually worked. Behind the door is a stack of wheels. The dial turns them, and each wheel has a notch cut in its edge. Dial the right sequence and all the notches line up, and a lever called the fence drops into them and lets the bolt move. Get one number wrong and the fence has nowhere to fall. The clever part, the owner could change the combination himself. Anytime, the older bank locks were stuck with one fixed key. It did exactly what it promised. There's no key to steal, copy, or beat out of a nervous clerk, so the dial took over the safe and never gave it back. But it left one hole open. There's no key to lift off a man now, but you can still make him tell you the number. Sargent's fix for stolen keys was to delete the key. His fix for the hole that left is the next lock on this list, and it doesn't trust anybody, including the owner. The clock. This is the lock that finally beat the midnight kidnappers by refusing to open for anyone, including the bank. By the 1870s, thieves had stopped drilling vaults. Why fight a steel door when you can grab the banker at home at night and walk him to it in the morning? The combination lock only guarded the number, and the number lived inside a man's head. So James Sargent, 1873, built a lock with no keyhole and no combination at all. It's a clock. The vault keeps its normal dial, but this bolts on behind it. You close up for the night, and a running clock physically blocks the bolts from moving until a set number of hours has passed. Dial the right combination and nothing happens. The clock isn't done. Kidnap the banker, march him to the vault at midnight, and it simply will not open until morning, which created a beautiful new problem. The early ones had one clock, and if that one clock stopped, the bank was locked out of its own money, no override, no key, nothing. The security had become the disaster. The fix is still standard today. Fit 2 or 3 clocks and let any one of them open the door. They built a lock too stubborn to obey its own owner, so its worst enemy became a clock that quit. They gave it 3 hearts so it couldn't die of one. The password. Long before you ever typed a password into a computer, you spun one into a padlock. The letter combination padlock. The idea is ancient. The Romans had combination rings, and lettered padlocks survived from medieval times. The 13 and 1400s, a row of engraved rings, letters or numbers, sits on the shackle. Each ring has a notch hidden inside it. Spin the rings until the word is right, all the notches line up and the shackle slides free. No key. The key is a word you keep in your head. The keyless idea never died. It's your gym locker and your bike lock. But the old letter locks did, for the same reason weak passwords die. Too few rings, too loose. So how do you crack one without a computer? You feel for it. Pull on the shackle. Spin each ring until it catches one at a time. And you've read the whole word. The fix was false notches, decoy catches to fool your fingers. The very same trick Brahma used earlier on this list. A medieval password you could crack one letter at a time. Some security problems are genuinely centuries old. The Springless. In the 1600s, a Swede built a lock with no springs, and the industry took 200 years to catch up. The Polhem lock after Christopher Polhem. A Scandinavian padlock, cast iron, built to survive a cold, wet winter. A pin or lever lock leans on springs to hold its parts in place. Polhem threw all that out. No springs, no pins at all. Inside is a stack of discs that just spin freely. The key turns each disc to a certain angle. A slot in each one lines up into a channel, and the shackle lets go. No springs anywhere, so there's nothing to rust shut, freeze solid, or wear out. In a Swedish winter, that isn't a gimmick. That's the difference between a lock and a lump of ice. The original faded because each one was hand-forged and slow to build, but the idea was 2 centuries ahead. That spinning disc design is the direct ancestor of the Abloy disc detainer lock, 1907, still one of the harder locks in the world to pick. He also made the parts interchangeable, so you could order a spare key. A one-man industrial revolution working on padlocks around 1700. The Ancestor. This is the oldest lock on the list. It's also basically the lock on your front door. The Egyptian pin tumbler lock. About 4,000 years old. A heavy wooden bolt slides across the door. Sitting on top are loose wooden pins that drop down by gravity into holes in the bolt and jam it. The key is a big wooden bar with pegs sticking up. It looks like a toothbrush. Slide it into the bolt, the pegs push each pin up just far enough to clear, and the bolt slides open. Gravity holds it shut. The right pegs lift it free. Sound familiar? It should, because that is exactly how the lock on your door works. 4,000 years later, we didn't replace the idea. We shrank it. The wooden version faded because it was enormous, easy to force, and the key was the size of a spatula, but the principle never left. The most ancient lock technology on Earth and the one guarding your house tonight are the same invention. And there's one more on this list to prove it. The Little Brass King. Every lock on this list was clever. This is the one that ended up on 1 billion doors, and it's a copy of the last one. Linus Yale Jr.'s cylinder lock, patented 1861, perfected in 1865. Yale took that 4,000-year-old Egyptian idea, pins dropping into a bolt, and shrank it into a little brass cylinder you could hold in your palm. A plug that turns inside a shell, with spring-loaded pins crossing the gap between them. The flat serrated key lifts every pin stack until all the breaks line up on one line. The shear line, and the plug spins free. The real genius wasn't the pins. It was the key. Small, flat, cheap to cut, and hard to copy by eye. And that's the one that beat them all. Not the challenge lock, not the snitch, not the steel ball, a tiny brass gadget built on the oldest idea in the room. It became the world's standard. The only things that have ever really troubled it are bump keys and electronic locks. And both are modern. 4,000 years of lockmaking. Every unpickable marvel beaten. And the winner was the very first design, put on a diet and cast in brass. 9 locks and safes, and most of them got beaten. If you want to watch more good engineering fail on screen, the weirdest tools ever made is right there. Send it to the Scrapyard.